Did you drive out?
Yeah, I drove.
I'm glad you look almost as old as me. Almost.
Wow, that's...
Everybody, can you hear me okay? I want to welcome everyone. Hopefully the cars are quiet. I want to welcome everybody to this exciting event. We start all of our Warrington Township meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. So we brought a flag and we'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This is the first state marker for Warrington, and we're in the planning stages of a garden area with a bench up behind me around the marker. We'll have informational signs about the Holbert family and some plantings. And we'd also like to make easier access from the parking lot up to the marker area. And we have a few suggestions for that. This is the first marker for Warrington, and we're hopeful that we have, now that we've done one, that we can do some more. I have a lot of people to thank and recognize. I want to thank everybody who helped us to pay for the marker and this event. Thanks to the members of the nominating committee of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission for approving the Holbert Racing marker. Thank you to all the members of the Warrington Historical Society and the Warrington Historic Commission. This has been on both of our agendas for a long time. of course, none of this would have happened without David Sharp, who took the lead on the David took the lead on this project from the nomination and communication with the state all the way to the sign installation and painting the parking lot spots. I also want to thank Kathy Newcomb for all her help with the graphic design for all our invitations and hero cards and program. Also, Steve Staffler, who has been involved since the beginning. Steve Petrillo, who owns Gem Jewelers and this parking lot and gave us permission to do this here. Kia, who allowed us to come through their parking lot, and Warrington Township for all their help. The Board of Supervisors has been very supportive to all the projects that the Warrington Historical Society has had. Especially Barry Luber and Joe Knox and the Public Works, who helped us with the setup. And I think this Public Work guys are still here. David's Holbert Road neighbors were instrumental in doing everything. I saw them out here pouring the cement for the sign and down here painting. And finally, last but not least, is Larry and Todd Holbert, who have both done an awful lot to make all of this happen. I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Her name is Jenna Solomon, and she's from the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission. Jenna?
Greetings to all of you today on behalf of Governor Tom Wolf and the members and staff of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, the Commonwealth's official history agency. Congratulations on dedicating today the newest of nearly 2,500 historical markers located across the state and the first historical marker in Warrington Township. These markers chronicle the people, places, events, and innovations that have made this Commonwealth notable. The historical marker program, which had its beginnings in 1946, is now one of the most popular and most innovative programs of the Historical and Museum Commission. Each marker establishes an important link to the past. It is hoped that this marker will not be the end of the story, but will instead provide encouragement for further study and discussion. This is a particularly unique marker in that it's discussing a very recent history. Many of the markers that we have applications for at the Historical and Museum Commission are for historic buildings, archaeological sites, but this is fairly recent history. And I think the most important thing to think about is that what we're really commemorating here is people, the team, and the contributions that they made to history that we actually still remember. And though it may seem like an odd fit for an architectural historian like me, the Holbert Racing marker has a personal connection to me and my family's history. I come from 3 generations of motorheads, and I mean men who are into racing in southeast Pennsylvania. It does not get more opposite in the sport of racing. It does not get more opposite than the endurance required for a race like Le Mans, than drag racing and funny cars. But my grandfather's brother was the funny car drag racer Jungle Jim Lieberman, who it has been said was the greatest showman in drag racing history. He was inducted into Big Daddy Don Gartlett's International Drag Racing Hall of Fame in 1993, and my dad was the manager of K&G Speed Associates, who was his sponsor of his race car in the 70s, and my brother followed in his footsteps by making his career with both Porsche and Audi in Conshohocken. So I am truly honored to be here today to represent the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission and the State Historic Preservation Office with this really unique moment in history and these people who contributed to the Commonwealth's history. My sincere thanks go out to the Warrington Historical Society, but especially David Sharp for his efforts regarding the Holbert Racing historical marker and making sure that this day happened today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jen. Next up, I have David Sharp, the Nominator.
Good morning or good afternoon if we're almost afternoon now. I'm the lucky person in the Warrington Historic Society that got to be the nominator or the lead person for submitting our application to the state for this marker. And I'm a fairly recent member of the Warrington area. I moved here a little over 5 years ago and got active in the Warrington Historical Society and Historical Commission to learn about the neighborhood I lived in. Now, funny thing was, I kind of already knew the name Warrington in the back of my mind. I'm like, why do I keep thinking of that? And until I pulled into my driveway with my old 78 911 that's back there that I restored, my neighbor came rushing across the street. He says, "Hey, are you the new neighbor?" "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, there used to be a lot of Porsches in your garage and mine." I'm like, oh yes, Warrington. The Holbert organization, the Holbert Racing team that I grew up, like many of us, admiring their successes. So, and then when I went about this nominating process or the application process with the state, I was aware of the success. I wasn't aware of the way the success came, and that's what, for me, was the greatest honor for being in front of you today. It was learning more about the way the teams were run, starting with Bob, and in the 50s, and the way he treated friends and family and whoever else got talked into driving the station wagon with spare parts in it, or friends and neighbors, on through to very professional people from all around the world. But the tenor stayed the same, the way the professionalism, the way people were treated, and the common goal of success, which, from what I've read, I think neither one of the outright well-known racers, Bob or Al, would take credit for the success. They'd very much take credit for the team's efforts. So I think that's what makes this a very special event as the nominator. I came to learn, and I got to speak and meet many of you and get more educated on Porsches and even Shelbys. I mean, imagine a guy who drives around in a 1.5 liter lightweight Porsche, later becoming the 1963 road racing champion, driving Shelby American, big-engined, heavier cars. It's hard enough to find someone that can drive one of those or a Porsche, but finding someone that can drive both successfully is completely remarkable to me. But I don't want to lose sight of this story, and I don't want to go too long, because I saw the most important part of today happening earlier. That's the reconnection that all of you are making with each other. So I ask, please sign. There's a guest book. Leave your email addresses and things so that all of you can be in touch with each other the modern way, and you can say a little thank you to the team members, many of whom are here and many of whom are not, but all contributed tremendously to what has become the latest Pennsylvania State Historical Marker. And I suppose that's all I had to say about it. It was an honor to be the nominator, and I'm grateful that the state of Pennsylvania recognized the Warrington Historical Society's efforts to get this marker done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Next, we have Larry Holbert.
Well, first of all, I'm glad everyone's here. I never expected a crowd this large. But I want to start by thanking David Sharp and Mary Roth for getting this all together. We knew the trucks would be a problem. And so obviously I worked with David to get all the research together, but you would think in this dealing with the state in this modern day and age and electronics, it would be just sending everything electronically. But after Dave did the research and we got all the facts together, he had to make 12 hard copies for 12 different members of the Historical Society in Pennsylvania to get it approved. And I guess at first they said, well, this is just a couple of small-time people in Warrington that race cars. What's so significant about that? But then once they realized that both Dad and Al had raced throughout Canada, United States, and of course Le Mans, France, they said, well, I guess maybe this is significant. So just the fact that he got this approved was wonderful. And then even after he had it approved, they wanted to change the wording of the sign that they've already approved and change the facts, but of course he got that straightened out. And then, of course, many of my cousins are here. We all grew up here in Warrington, and I was thinking back in the 1950s when we went to elementary school, the population of Warrington was about 2,400 people. And today it's 24,000 or so. And when we used to, even if we were close by and say down in Abington, we'd say to somebody, we lived in Warrington, and they said, no one knew where Warrington was, and no idea. They might know where Doylestown is or something. So now at least, Al and Pop maybe get Warrington on the map. So as many of you know, this building right here was actually our Volkswagen Porsche dealership from like 1959 to 69. And so my dad actually worked on his race car here, and we had a shop across the street and a body shop across the street. But then this building where Gateway Kia was our Porsche Audi dealership from 1970 to 1988. So the building behind there to the far left was the actual race shop where Al built the 962s and had a full race crew. And the building next to that was called Porsche Motorsports, and that was a factory effort by Porsche to support all the Porsche racing teams throughout the United States. That was also based here in Warrington. So I guess, when my dad started out racing, it was very simple in the 50s. He raced an MGTD where you would get in the car, drive to the racetrack, usually, and not close by. It might be Thompson, Connecticut, or Watkins Glen, New York. Drive to the racetrack, race the car, and drive home. And I believe there was one time in Thompson, Connecticut, he had a supercharged MG, and it broke, and we spent an extra day up there while he removed the supercharger so we could drive home. And then later on, when he got the Porsche, we actually had a station wagon and an open trailer to go to the racetrack. But then, of course, Al also started out slow, but eventually when he got the race shop and, 6 or 8 employees and Lowenbrow as a sponsor, they have a tractor trailer. So it changed drastically. It was not simple anymore, but it was great. And then what else? Yeah, I think that's all. So that's pretty much all I have. I guess the last person besides the Historical Society I would have to thank would be Bob and Ellie Holbert, or none of us would be here right now. So we thank them. Thank you very much. And Todd.
Thank you, Larry. And last we have Todd. Over.
So I'm not a public speaker. Larry did way better than I thought he would. Well, he had it written down and he didn't reference it very much, and I'm going to do the opposite because I wrote it down and I'm not that great at this. And I wrote quite a lot and then said, we're all going to get bored and we should keep it short, especially since I'm last. All right, so Pop rarely talked about his racing, but in the room downstairs, off the foyer, there was a library of automotive and racing books, shelves full of silver cups and engraved platters. There might have been a Cobra book, maybe behind the chair in the living room under a stack of Speed Sport News. So not until the last few years have I understood how significant Bob Holbert was. I've got pictures, thanks to Larry, of him standing proudly by his MG, winning a local club rally. But then a huge jump to him hoisting the trophy at Sebring with Roger Penske, or standing in the Porsche factory garage at Le Mans, jumping out of the car so that Dan Gurney could take his turn behind the wheel, or hunched over a track, drawn in the dirt, discussing corners with Ken Miles. And it's hard to believe that that's the same Pop that used to drag me around in the little red wagon behind his tractor. Obviously, I was more familiar with Dad's racing, but it still didn't seem that important. But I do remember sitting quietly listening to conversations how to bring Porsche back into IMSA, or watching the Indy 500 on the couch with my nervous mother, coming off a long night drifting in and out, sleeping in the rental car, listening to the English language broadcast to celebrate the third win at Le Mans. So with the benefit of time and perspective, there is significance. But at the end of the day, all of Holbert's racing, right, was a part of the Holbert's family here in Warrington. And I read that these markers tell the important and interesting stories that are part of the history of Pennsylvania. And I'd like to think the Holberts fit as an interesting story. So what a cool way today to punctuate all that history.
Thanks, Todd. I want to thank any of the elected officials that are here today. And also, is there anybody that was part of the race team or that would like to come up and say a few words or tell a story? Thanks. Good. Yeah, if anybody wants to come up here, and you can take the next.
Please try and keep your feet. My name is Michael Wessner. I'm also not a public speaker. I simply would like to say, anybody that didn't know the Holberts didn't know what great people and great racers they were. I've been lucky enough to remain good friends with Todd all these years after Al's passing, and I'll tell you, I miss him dearly.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess we've come to the unveiling. So we need Todd, Jim Gorey and Randy Brown. And Larry and Todd.
Practice this, obviously. Oh, right, okay. All right. Woo! Gotcha. Hey, that worked. Didn't look that bad.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming today and making this a special occasion. And I'd like to thank the Holbert family for putting Warrington on the map.